just because he couldn't be tried in Niger Delta. The lawyers raised the argument. You can't do that. Take him back to where you are alleged that he committed the offense. And so it was bogged down and all that. And amnesty came and he was released. But the truth of the matter is that certain things happened. And for personal animosity, people who otherwise would have felt convenient in Nigeria, standing trial, have been found to have run away, i.e. James Ibori. And he ran into a jurisdiction where by now he will be thinking that if I had known, I would have stayed back in Nigeria. Because don't forget, he went through the entire gambit of the judiciary and was certified clean. Okay? So, mood was changing. And I doubt very seriously whether he will have wanted to be tried in Nigeria. That doesn't mean that the Nigerian court won't have jurisdiction. But the South African court says that we are exercising the jurisdiction conferred on us by our own law. Okay. And that's why we're taking this step.
Now, let's put it side by side the case of the trial of his co-accused here in Nigeria. What does this sentencing now, what effect do you think it will have on the others, his brother and the co-accused here in Nigeria?
Of course, it will be demoralizing. It will be demoralizing because he's been sentenced. Edmond has been sentenced. And you recall that the footage on television, which I watched on television and other whatever, when he was being taken out of court, he was resisting. He was shouting because he felt, obviously, that he had been wronged. He was asking, why me? Concealment of treason. I didn't do anything. And then, so you are now accusing me for not reporting. So is that why you are sentenced to life imprisonment? He didn't like it. Nobody wants to be sent to prison. But now that these two occurrences, we've had these two occurrences, I guess that it will be demoralizing. And I hope that the judges who are conducting this trial will just limit themselves to the four walls of their case file and not look at what has happened outside, not look at what has happened in South Africa, not look at what has happened in Nigeria in the earlier case, and judge the case according to its own merit. Because a judge can come to a different conclusion from the same set of facts. It does happen.
How does that work? Is it based on his discretion?
It's not about discretion. It's based on his own understanding of the law. It just can come to a different conclusion. And so the job of the defense is to put in everything to ensure that since they believe in the cause of their clients and they believe that these clients are not guilty of the crime, they've denied it, that they have a fair chance of getting released from custody in court. But on a personal level, I guess that it will be very demoralizing and very disturbing for them.
Well, we'll take it up from there and actually look at some of the effect. If you say sometimes you talk about the judges here to, blank, yes, so to speak, themselves out of what has happened in South Africa. That will be after the news. Let's go back to Melinda. She's standing up to give us an update for the news.
Thank you very much, Sulaiman. These are the headlines. The Joint Task Force, the JTF, is intensifying its war against the militant group Boko Haram. In a renewed crusade yesterday, the JTF killed 4 Boko Haram members in Gaidam local government area of Yobe State, northeast Nigeria. Meanwhile, another move by the militant group Boko Haram to cause havoc and destabilize peace in Kano has been frustrated by the police command in the state. A Volkswagen Golf car, reportedly carrying improvised explosive devices, was seized at a village in Kano. And away from security issues, the leadership of still on security issues, the leadership of the Senate has met with the nation's serving chiefs over the rate of violence in the country. In the meeting, which lasted for about 6 hours yesterday, the service chiefs and the head of security agencies briefed the Senate on the security situation in the country and tried to find solution to the challenges. On the foreign scene, 2 Bosnian ex-officials have been convicted of charges such as expulsion of non-Serbs, torture, murder, ill treatment, deportation, and destruction of villages. Those are the headlines. It's back to you, Sulaiman.
Well, our concluding moments with Jiti Ogunye and, well, still on the Henry Okah sentencing. And in this case, what do you think we should be doing to really stem the tide of, should I say, such? Because first, if you look at it critically, initially, we didn't get to see some, now I'm talking about the judiciary's angle now, we didn't get to see some kind of light in our own trial here until we got the sentencing of Henry Okah, or rather, judgment was handed down in Henry Okah's case in South Africa before we saw the Ebiwari's case, which you just talked about. Is it possible that we're looking at what is happening outside before we respond in?
No. You know,
or mere coincidence?
No. Let me just say this. You know, the Nigerian judiciary is one of the strongest judiciary in the Commonwealth. And I'm not saying this, there are records to show. We're talking about the judiciary where people have gone from here to the Hague, Elias. We're talking about the judiciary that used to service other judiciaries in the part of the Commonwealth.
Does it still happen?
From here, Justice Aguda went to Botswana. From here, Justice Ayola went to Gambia. You know, they were begging Nigerians to give them judges and all that. So we're talking about a very strong judiciary. And really, if you look at South Africa, I don't think that we have a lot to learn from South Africa. We're talking about a judiciary that is an heir to a racial judiciary, a judiciary that was compelled by law to enforce racial injustice in South Africa. And so, even if you look at what happened recently, which was reminiscent of the Sharpeville massacre of 1963 and Soweto massacre, you had miners being mowed down like grass, you know, in South Africa, which caught international attention for no reason. And we saw it on the television, the footages and all that. So I'm not too sure that we'll have a lot to learn from the judiciary of South Africa, and I will not still even vouch for the fairness of this trial. All I've said is that, yes, we've had a kind of closure, so take it off from there. But the point is that in Nigeria, there are a lot of problems here. We've talked about the nature of the judiciary, the structure, and how these occasions delay. You know, trillion structure, you have to go to the Supreme Court and so on and so forth, which was part of the problem. But moving forward, I think that as these issues are coming up, bothering us, the judiciary will continue to rise to the occasion by some practice directions. I know that some cases will have to be expeditiously tried, expeditiously determined and adjudicated, so that within a short span of time, people will come to a conclusion that, yes, we've had a conclusion, a closure. The victims of crime, the society, the criminal defendant that is standing trial, the prosecution, all will then have to be compelled by a new regime of expeditious determination of justice to ensure that justice is done quickly. And I hope that will be done. But in conclusion, if I'm permitted to conclude this way, I will say that, as I said earlier, we are passing through a very dangerous phase in our lives. A colleague of yours here, unfortunately, God rest his soul, was a victim of this bombing incident. Somebody doing what he knew how to do best and was caught in the crossfire by things he didn't know. And our country must do a serious soul searching. We can have, and I think that Henry Okah's lawyer made that point, and that point must not be lost on us. In concluding, he made the point that, yes, in South Africa, Nelson Mandela was sentenced to life imprisonment, but that didn't solve the problem of South Africa. And I'm not saying that Henry Okah is, I'm quoting the lawyer now, a Nelson Mandela, but sentencing him will also not solve the problem in Nigeria. Therefore, instead of talking about dialogue with a section of the country, amnesty with a section of the country, ad infinitum, indefinitely, why can't we have an ecumenical conclave? Why can't we have a national conference? Why can't we talk to ourselves and say that what do we really want as a country? How do we govern ourselves? And how do we then attempt to solve all these problems? Or is it anybody imagining that you and I will want to live with this problem for the rest of our lives? Those who are thinking that Boko Haram problem will be solved now, it's not going to be solved. And you know why? Boko Haram didn't start from today. It started years back when children, by a socio-cultural setting, will be sent out of home and they will never see their parents again on the streets.
Well, he goes,
and then from there, another. And those children are still like that today, in spite of the Child Rights Act. It is not being criminalized. The culture of sending people out onto the streets so that they become wild over time. They have nothing to live for, so they have everything to die for.
Well, it goes back to talking. Well, Jiti Ogunye, a legal practitioner. Many thanks for coming on Sunrise Daily.